My name is Joan Snowden. I'm one of the 7 committee members that put together the exhibit we have at the Amherst Historical Society through November 2nd called Cambodians in Amherst, A History of the Khmer Community. And in conjunction with that, Seng has agreed to come and read from his memoir of those terrible years, as well as the experience of coming to Amherst as a young man and making a new life here in Massachusetts. So I'm just going to read a few little notes. Seng T was born in the Kampong Sapui province of Cambodia, the son of a respected physician who taught him to value life, aspire to humility, and seek the good in people. He was 7 when he was forced from his home in Phnom Penh to a Khmer Rouge work camp in the country, and 13 when he made his way alone to a refugee camp in Thailand in 1981. Is that correct? 79, 80?
81.
81. He arrived in the U.S. as an unaccompanied minor in 1982 and was adopted by an American family in Amherst, Massachusetts. Now he is a citizen of the United States, a husband, a father, and a former educator in the Lowell, Massachusetts school system. Seng has appeared on The Phil Donahue Show, CBS's 60 Minutes, and WBUR in Boston, among many other speaking engagements, and his story has appeared in numerous publications, including Time Magazine when he was very young, and the Boston Globe more recently. Seng's wish is that his memoir, The Years of Zero, will give him a platform to expand his message beyond the circle of his students in Lowell to people all over the world who are in need of a little hope. Please welcome Seng T.
Good evening. First of all, I would like to thank Liz Lawson and Joanne Snowden for welcoming here, welcoming home to Amherst. And thank you so much for having me here. And especially thanks to Amherst Town that opened arms for me, for many of the Cambodians unaccompanied minor programs, and the Cambodian families in the early 80s. And it's very special, and I always, when I do some speaking anywhere in school, I always talk about Amherst is the place that I dreamed to have when I was in Cambodia. And it's a place that my mother wished for me to come to have a better education, a better opportunity of life, a better person. Just like my mother's hand me to send me to this town. And I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I always say that this is a special place, and so many good memories, and especially this town is more like an educated town that colleges all around, UMass Amherst, Amherst College, Smith, and it's just a wonderful to have a new life here in Amherst. And now I'm in my late 60s. My late 50s. Yeah. And I thought like, wow. When I turn on the TV these days, war around the world, it's like, wow, this war is still happening. It just like, and then when you see it, it's like, it just flashed back my memory in those days. That, wow, I am so glad that I live in this country. I enjoy the freedom, and I'm lucky. And could imagine if I'm in Cambodia today or in other part of the world that still struggle. And it's imagine, and I consider myself one of the luckiest. But now that now that I have succeeded my education and be able to move on my life to a different town in Laos, where the second Cambodian largest in the country, and I was there for almost 30 years, working in the low public schools there, and it's just a really special that I got this knowledge from here and move on to have the communities in Amherst, in Lowell. And I never, as I wrote the years of the zero, I never thought that I would be able to, write a book or anything. It's just that something that I have told my story to Time Magazine, to CBS, to many other new medias, but there's something missing that I need to do was doing my own writing. And, writing a book, it's as you know, it's because English is not my first language, but it's very, very difficult. It's not just only the writing. It's just that when you write this memory, it's just everything is combat to, and it took me so long. It took me a while to work on this memoir, and my intent is not to write this and sell it. It's just to have my kid read what happened to me, to my family, and to the million of Cambodians that did not survive. And but my friends, my colleagues, was encouraged me that this is a very important story because there's not many stories written in this subject. I mean, the only thing that came out in the in the late 80s was the movie Killing Fields, and then was a couple books written about the genocide, and that's even motivated me to to finish this memoir. And now, I mean, I was born in 1968, as many of you might know. That's the years of mass bombing in Cambodia, the secret bombing by the United States. And that's how, and at the time I was too young to know what's happening in Cambodia. And, and I grew up in a middle class Cambodian family that, my mother was a housewife, my father was a doctor, and support all 11 of us. And I was the youngest kids in the 11 in the family. And at the time in the early 1970s, I just ran around and be happy and just nothing. It's just a beautiful, peaceful at that time. And since that bomb came and everything just fueled up, the rumors, the war started spreading in the countryside. And I remember in those years, ran to the street and look at the soldier parading on the street. And it was just like, wow, I heard about the Khmer Rouge. And the Khmer Rouge is mean that Khmer red. And I thought at the time, as an age 5, 6 years old, you probably, I thought that this is maybe they look red or they look different at the time. So I remember the soldier was caught at Khmer Rouge and parade on the street and blindfold, and it's just, I would look at them and said, they just look like us. And I was that curious, and then I was asking my parents and what is happening in this, why we had to escape from the bomb, the rocket at nighttime. And then in 1975, or before that, my mother, she never had any education, but every one of us starting from me until my oldest brother had the education is the most important. And my parents be able to send one of our oldest brother who got full scholarship to go study in France right before the Khmer Rouge came in 1975. And I remember a very quiet day, April 17, 1975. I was about 7, 8 years old at the time. And I remember that morning, it was around New Year time. And my mother was preparing food. My father was still in the hospital, and I was playing, and my brothers and sister was just roaming around and hearing the radio, and suddenly the radio silent, and everything, the Khmer Rouge started parade coming in with the white flags, smiling, and I remember ran after the tank, cheering and smiling. Everything was just the war come to an end, and I was be able to that wow, I'll be able to go back to school again. So I ran to my mother, and my mother was trying to preparing food for the New Year, and I said, "Mother, the Khmer Rouge here, the Khmer Rouge here. We both everything is back to normal." And my mother was kind of ignore, and and the kid was people was just smiling. I mean, cheering on the street, and that afternoon, that day in the afternoon, the second group tried march in, not just only my hometown, but everywhere in the country. It was like a monster. You could imagine orders people whoever live in the town and city to leave their hometown in 3 hours. And they use the propaganda that you need to leave, don't bring any stuff, just leave, bring whatever, just only a couple days, and then you will return because the US will come and bomb you. So just get out of the city as soon as possible. And I remember my father came, ran from the hospital. I look at his face, it's like, it was really shocked me because his face is so frightened, and he would just rush us to gather everything. Just we have to leave quick as and Khmer Rouge start executing people. And I was so curious at the time. He said, I told my mother, I said, they were smiling, they was happy, they was friendly, and everything. My father just push everyone just leave as soon as possible. I was grab whatever I could, my couple clothes and a couple things that, along with my mothers, my brothers and sisters, and it was just the first shock that one of the family that could not refuse to leave their home, and I saw that the Khmer Rouge took out the gun just right in front of me, and my mother was just yank my hand, just walk as fast as we could, just in a narrow highway to the countryside. And I remember the Khmer Rouge tank was parking and make sure that checkpoint to see everybody look intellectual, everyone with their glasses or long hair, they just stop them and strip them, and sometimes they just execute and push their kid, handicapped people, children. It's just beyond my imagination as a young boy watching this mass execute, killing, pushing onto the rice field. So the time it was really, I was we walked almost a week slowly with hundreds of families, thousands of families down just out from the to the remote area. So I was curious, wow, now it's been a week. How come the Khmer Rouge? How come they not let us to go back to our home? And my mother would just told me just keep walking, keep walking. until we end up to this part of the country in that province. The Khmer was still us there for about a few months, and suddenly they came in the middle of the day and said, okay, we need to send you to the other part of the country because Battambang is where all the rice fields, all the rice plantation. So the Khmer was put thousands of families, and I could imagine that you probably know that the train walks like almost like a Jewish Holocaust, that they just throw people in that train car dock and send it to that part of the country. And I remember it was like a hundred of people just in that one car, and then I couldn't even breathe at the time. And my father had to hold me to get some air to get breathe. And the Khmer sent like million of Cambodians to that part of the country, Battambang. And when we got to that part, it was on the monsoon season. And I looked at the field, nothing, just water, rice field and filled with water. And you look above, a little further, it's just the village. It's called, they said, here you need to go to that village. It's called Tekchu, that means the flooding, the overflow village. So when we got there, 100,000 of families were packed to live along the bank of the river in that village. And my father and our family, the Khmer was suspicious all the times. The reason was because the way we looked. My father looked more like Chinese, more like intellectual, and they have a lighter skin, and the Khmer did not trust those people who have lighter skin, who have look more like a Chinese. If you have like a darker skin, the Khmer would say, oh, you might be coming from a poor family, a peasant. So my father was trying to tell me to make sure when the Khmer question and just tell them that we're collecting cans for living. So, but when the Khmer put us in this home, it's about, I would say about beside the room, right here, this much. It's about maybe 15 family, 30 people were put in that house, and we stacked, living with each other, like, put a hammer and sometimes sit on the floor. And I remember that night, the Khmer's been suspicious of my family, my father all the time. So the Khmer's came in and looking for my father. And the minute I knew that they're looking for my father, then I said, that was it. The Khmer will take him to kill. Because I remember that night I was crying, I was trying to, and the Khmer said, if you try to follow us, you are going to come with us. So my mother would try to hold me on, try to calm down. So the Khmer said, only a couple of days, we'll return your father back. But he never returned. So when we got to that, I was the young, my brothers, my oldest brothers and sisters was sent to the different labor camp, and I was too young at the time. The Khmer was allowed me to stay in the village to work in the rice field with a group of other kids. So that time, it's 5 o'clock in the morning. Every kids have to leave their village to the rice field until you receive a bowl of rice at noon time, and about an hour's of break, and then we head back to to the rice field again until 7 o'clock. And I was not allowed to complain that, oh, this is hard work, or I did not have food to eat. I was not allowed that. Or that I was not allowed to say that I miss my mother, I miss my father. And I was not allowed to that. The only that I allowed to pray is their uncle, their Khmer Rouge leader. So that years, it's just nothing happening in Cambodia. Even that travel from village to village, I was not allowed. And my parents was not allowed. And any people in that village was not allowed. Everyone in the morning out to the rice field, come back. Sometime when it's moon time, we have to go back to work again until midnight. So day by day at the time, people would die of starvation. Some people were executed, and the people who live in that house, one by one, people died of starvation, and some of them was executed, were beaten, tortured, killed behind the house. And in 1977, everyone won that house. My mother was the last one to die in that house. And I remember that dry season. I was so skinny, I was hungry, and I couldn't bear my mother, so I begged the people, the village leader, that please allow me or have somebody out to carry my mother. So I took my mother to bury it on my own hand behind the village. And after that, I was the only person left in that house. Then the commander said, send me to the labor camp. And with about 100 kids, other kids, right in the open field. At the time, I did not have any blanket, I didn't have anything, just a pair of my clothes and a scarf. And the important thing at the time, my mother gave me was the tea kettle. That tea kettle, it saved my life. It's just like a spirit, my mother, that I used that tea kettle to cook, to hide food, as my survival to save my life. And when I got to that camp, the violence is just beyond you imagine. The torture, the hate, and some other kids was being brainwashed, and they try to end up beating the other kids. It's just like a beyond. And I remember at the time, it was that even those the Khmer Rouge were putting the rule even harder. If you get caught stealing rice, stealing anything from the field, that hand would be cut off. And you will be educated and put in or work all day, all night, or sometimes you get killed by the other Khmer Rouge soldiers. So at the time, even those nothing stopped me from stealing food. So even though the Khmer Rouge had that rule to every kid, I was be able to sneak at night and steal those food. And I was trying to feed the other kids who's next to me, slept next to me, so that he wouldn't report to the others, Khmer Rouge leader, that I stole food from the field. So I've been trying to feed him almost every night until one day he was gone. Then I just and I was caught several times, was beaten, tortured, and I thought that I was dead. They left me in the rice field, so I was be able to get up and wash myself and pretend to go to work like nothing happening. So those 4 years, it's just like the violence, the tortures, and the execution just all around you. And at the time, the only that time that I could remember, could ask for help just at night time, I just spiritly just call my mother just to be there, to be with me, and my father to be with me. But it just empty the time. You and then anything that you could find to eat at the time, you just whatever you could find just to survive. And in 1979, when the Vietnamese took over Cambodia, and the Khmer Rouge was pushed back to the countryside, up to the jungle again. So I was able to take a long journey from Battambang to Phnom Penh. It took me about a month to walk. And when I walked to the capital city, I was hoping to reunite with my oldest brother that who left to study in France before the war. And the minute that I heard that in the capital city there was a prisoner that the Khmer Rouge tortured all the Khmer Cambodian intellectuals or any people that from overseas. And I remember that time when I went in at the beginning, it was just, you can see, you can smell, you can still see the fresh blood was there. And 2 weeks later, after that, after I went the first time, I went again, and I saw my brother's name. As soon I saw my brother's name, it just everything is just like you feel so empty that I was hope I was be able to reunited with my brother. But now the Khmer Rouge even asked him to return and execute him in that prison. So after that, I decided not to go back to live in the orphanage because in 1979, 1980s, there was an orphanage in the capital city. So I decided to live on the street on my own and try to help other people just to get by day. So that's how I learned there was a refugee camp. That's how I know. And I took a train a couple days to Battambang and escaped alone from Battambang to Thai border. That time I was I was the youngest kid with a group of 10 or 15 people. And I remember that night, I thought that I would not be able to make it because once I crossed the border, and here we go, the Khmer Rouge checkpoint. And the Khmer Rouge were trying to, get everyone pass by who has money, and then they pass it, and then you just go it. And I was the last one, and it was just that night. I feel like my mother's spirit was just there to save my life because some reason while I was walking past their checkpoint along with the other women and the Khmer Rouge soldier was about 6, 7 of them, all of them did not see me. And suddenly I was passed by their checkpoint and be able to go into the Thailand. And I remember that night, as soon that I passed by the Khmer Rouge checkpoint, walked all night until close in the morning, and the shooting between the Thai soldiers and some other soldiers. I was right in the middle of the crossfire. So everybody, it was just went all different direction. And I remember I was so tired on that night. I lay down and fell asleep. And said that morning, I woke up. And here we go, gunpoint right into my face. And I didn't know that the camp soldier who thought that I was their enemy. So I was raised my hand and said, please do not shoot me. So that's why they brought me to the refugee camp in Thailand. And once I got into the refugee in Thailand, they put me in the orphanage, and that's how I met Roger Rosenblatt, who wrote this article, the Time article, in 1981, this Children of War. And that's how my American mother picked up this magazine, read in January 1982. And 6 months later, 6 months later, I was adopted by them to come to Amherst. And I remember it was so shock experience when I heard that my name was post coming to America. I was so excited at the time. I ran to my orphanage and said, I'm coming to America. I'm coming to America. And I remember my friends in the refugee camp. Usually we did not have any TV to watch or newspaper to read. We all in the evening we all got together and tell stories. And I remember the time he said, Seng, when you coming to America, make sure when you got on a plane, in the bathroom on the plane, make sure you don't mess up anything. If you mess up, you might be just flush it into the ocean, no one would know. So it's right in my head, and I image America just like New York City. And people react, because in the refugee camp you all see is like a cowboy movies and all the things that posted around the refugee camp. So when I got on a plane in June 1982, coming to America, I was so excited, but at the same time you're so nervous because you don't know that where you come, who you're gonna be end up living with. At the time, I said, well, am I gonna come and live with in the orphanage again, or who and which family that I'm gonna be living with? And when you got on a plane, I was sitting right in the middle of the foreigner, which is I don't know was Americans or European, or I couldn't speak any English, and I was just smiling, and I was so tired at the time because when we coming to we didn't wait at the regular waiting area. We were waiting in a special where all the refugees was waiting somewhere that not in the terminal. So when we ready, they just transport us, put us in a plane, and I was so exhausted that morning. And when I got on the plane and the plane took off, I fell asleep, and suddenly someone woke me up. And here we go, a tray of food. And I said, wow, in Cambodia, I'm looking for food. Now the food just right in front of me. So I said, well, anything that right there, I'm gonna try to finish them off. And my stomach never get used to orange juice or to others kind of, Western food. So I gobbled them all, and as soon as I finish it, my stomach was never get used to that. So I had to go to the bathroom. So I said, oh my goodness, I don't know how to use the bathroom. Where is it? It's like you try to figure it out. So finally, you just turn off and then you got in. And once you got in, you start to flush back those memories my friend told me. So after you use the bathroom, you didn't want to leave the stuff in the toilet. So I said, well, if something happened, at least I'm holding on to the door. So one hand I was holding to the door, one hand I was just trying to, whatever I push, what I was at can, on my hand. So suddenly I could hear the toilet like loud noise. So I said, this is it, I'm going down. So I'm holding on. I was so sweat at the time. And after that, it's like, and when the toilet's silent, I say, I'm survived. So it took me a while to just try to figure out a vacancy or occupy, just click back and forth, until someone outside rescued me to get into that. Then after that, the next tray of food, I was like staring, should I take it again or not? So it's just starting facing a new culture coming to America. And when I landed in San Francisco, and actually the first plane to stop in the other country, it's Philippines. And I thought Philippines is America. So I took off with some other people, and suddenly people saw me with the jacket and with the IOC. Yep, and they brought me back to the airplane. So that they said, this is not America. So you have more to go. Yeah. So when I got into San Francisco, and I thought that, wow, this is America. And as soon I stepped my foot on American soil, I said, it felt like I was born again. So then I said, another 5 or 6 hours of flight from San Francisco to Hartford, Connecticut. So I was so curious, who was my parents? Who I'm going to be living with? And I remember we got to Hartford, Connecticut. It's about nighttime. And as soon as I land there, I see my Richard, Marlena, my parents, Bethany, Noels, and my other sister, blue and blonde hair. And I said, they introduced me, and I said, this is my family? They're so tall, they're so big, and I was so scared. And I was just smiling, and so they brought me to Amherst. And I was curious, trying to observe I said, this is not America, because it's all trees and it's not like New York. I mean, it's not the image that my friend told me. It's not like that. So when my parents drove by this street, cut through the Route 9, and I saw southwest buildings, all those UMass buildings, skylight, lights and everything. That New York, that's it. That's where I'm gonna live. I was so excited, and this is my parents rich, so it was so excited. That's my dream. One coming to America to live in those kind of life. So when my parents passed by, I was so disappointed. And you probably remember Northeast Street. That's where they live. Soon that my parents drove that to their house in Northeast Street, I said, I am coming back to live in a farm again. And this is not what my dream want to come here to live. And I was curious at that night. In the morning, because I got up like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, I peeked from the window and I saw the cow. I said, this is Cambodia again. It's just like you Northeast Street. You see the farm, the cows, and the mountain. And I thought that I am coming here to work in the rice field again. So that's but it's just that when I first came, it took me like some time to adjust my new family, the culture, and the food. And goodness, thank you for my parents who very patient. And I know many of the foster parents here that are really, really patient with many of my friends, the Cambodian unaccompanied minor program, and it's just that, and the first week I was very homesick, and I pretty much had a lot of dreams about my mother, my father, but about a month later, the one dream that I had about my mother, that she told me that you don't need me anymore. Now that you have a new family, now that you have a new home, that you need to be a good boy, try to be as best person I could be. So, and suddenly, it's like my mother would disappear, and then I would try to grab her, try to call her, and it's just that you are in a safe place. And since then, I feel less a dream of my mother, and I feel more like my mother's now. Her duty is done. That she's handed me to this new family. So that's why I, appreciate the patience, the care, the love that my new parents gave me. And without them, I wouldn't be here standing, talking, writing this memoir, and working in the local public schools for 30 years. I wouldn't be able to do that. So I'm gonna leave for you to have any questions, anything. Please, thank you. Yeah.